Okay, chemists, in this video, we are going to put it all together, which means is that I'm going to have you write the formula equation and balance it. By the end of this video, you should be able to write out the formula equations from word equations and balancing the corresponding formula equation. So we're just going to be taking the two skills that you've learned in class, or maybe if you watch my last two videos, and putting them together. So here's an example. Write the corresponding formula equation and balance. So this is a compound. We did say, well, it's a metal and a nonmetal, so therefore it's ionic. We need to look up and balance those charges. So magnesium has a +2, chlorate is ClO3 -1, so it'll be MgClO3 2. I did put the little space in front to indicate that it needs to be balanced, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. Just make sure you leave some space to put the coefficients in there. Next up is magnesium chloride. That is an ionic compound. So I'm going to look up and balance the charges, and so it'll be MgCl2. Next up is oxygen. Oxygen is an element, and you have to, again, ask yourself the question, well, is that element monatomic or is it diatomic? Well, oxygen puts the Hoff in Brinkelhoff, so therefore it is a diatomic element, so you're going to write O2. Next up, you are going to have to balance the equation. So we're going to list out all the elements that we have. So we have magnesium, and you may be tempted to actually take the ClO3 and keep it together. But if you notice on the right-hand side here, there is not a matching ClO3. So you cannot simply just take it and keep it together. Instead, because there isn't a matching ClO3, you actually need to break it up. So I'm going to break it up into Cl, and I'm going to break it up into oxygen, O. Then we'll count up all the substances that we have, each atom type. So on the left-hand side, we've got 1 magnesium. Be careful with this. So notice this 2 goes to both the oxygen and the chlorine. So there's actually 2 chlorine atoms, and there's a total of 6 oxygen atoms. On the right-hand side, there's 1 magnesium, 2 chlorine, and 2 oxygen. As I mentioned in my previous video, I always tend to start with the first one that's not balanced. So if you notice, the oxygen is the first thing that I see is not balanced. So it's 6 to 2. So it looks like I have to say, okay, what times 2 is going to give me 6? Well, if I put a 3 there, 3 times 2 is going to give me 6. And you can see the numbers match on either side. So we are balanced. Here's another example. So again, I'm going to ask you to write the formula equation and balance it. So we've got potassium carbonate. That's an ionic compound. We got to look up and balance the charges. So this will be K2CO3. Chromium 3 nitrate. Remember, the Roman numeral of 3 indicates that that is the charge on chromium. So it's going to be Cr with a +3 charge, and nitrate is going to be NO3 with a -1. Potassium nitrate is up next. It's, again, ionic compound, so that's why I have the charges written. And then chromium 3 carbonate, again, there's that Roman numeral, so that is the charge on chromium, and it'll be Cr2CO3. 3. Next up, we have to balance the equation. So we're going to list out all the things that we have. We've got potassium. I am able to keep the CO3 together because I do have a matching CO3 on the other side. We also have a chromium. And then I am able to keep the NO3 together as well. On the left-hand side, I have 2 potassium, I have 1 carbonate, I have 1 chromium, and 3 nitrates. On the right-hand side, I have 1 potassium, I have 3 carbonates, 2 chromiums, and 1 nitrate. I'll start with the potassium first. So notice it's 2 to 1, so I'm going to put a 2 in the spot where the potassium nitrate is. That'll change the potassium to 2, but it also changes the nitrate to 2 as well. I want to make sure I fix both in my tally. Next up is carbonate. On the left-hand side, it's 1 to 3, so I'm going to put a 3 in front. That'll change my carbonate to 3, but it also will change my potassium to 6. So you have a choice here. You could definitely move on to go to the chromium, or you can go back to the potassium because you can see we modified the number of potassium atoms by putting the 3 in the last step. So it's really up to you. In this case, I think I went with changing the chromium. So the chromium's next. So if you notice, it's 1 to 2, so I put a 2 here. That changed the number of chromium to 2, and it also changed the nitrate to 6. Okay, so let's reevaluate here. So it looks like the potassium is still the thing that is not balanced, and it looks like the nitrate is also not balanced. So it looks like we're going to have to make sure that there are 6 potassiums and 6 nitrates. Okay, so that's not too bad because actually, in order to get 6 of those, I would just have to change this 2 to a 6. And then when I do that, I'm going to fix my tally. So then that'll become a 6 for the potassium, and that'll become a 6 for the nitrate. And you can see the numbers match on either side as we kind of look at all of these, and so we're balanced. So part of this process is really just practicing, and so that's why the rest of your class period will be most likely time for you to practice and work on the extra practice sheet. Thank you so much for watching.